Welcome back, evidence students. This is the second video in my review series. In this video, I'll discuss a problem similar to one I asked on a former exam. Before listening to the rest of the video, you should read the problem, which is posted on our TWEN site under Course Materials. Look for Review Problem 1, The Bad Santa. I won't discuss all of the facts in the video, so you'll need to read the written problem. Finish reading the problem? Good. Let's proceed with the analysis. Remember that the first question you should ask before analyzing an evidence problem is, what is the party trying to prove with this evidence? In this case, we have a prosecutor with evidence of the defendant's prior conviction. What might the prosecutor be trying to prove with that evidence? Check your list of objections, looking especially at the column listing circumstances that give rise to an objection. You should find at least two that mention a prior conviction or other bad prior acts. Those entries will remind you that there are two different purposes for offering this type of evidence. A lawyer can use this evidence to suggest that a witness is untruthful, or the lawyer might offer this evidence to show that a person has a propensity to engage in bad behavior. If we apply those situations to this problem, we see that the prosecutor could have two different reasons to offer evidence about Klaus's prior conviction. If Klaus takes the stand, the prosecutor might try to use the evidence to show that Klaus has an untruthful character. Even if Klaus doesn't take the stand, the prosecutor might offer the evidence to show that Klaus is the type of person who takes advantage of women sexually. You'll recognize that as a propensity argument. These two purposes evoke different rules, so let's analyze them one by one. Stop the video and think about the first possible purpose. If the prosecutor says that she wants to offer the conviction to show Klaus's untruthful character, how will you as the judge rule? Remember that this is a motion in limine. Klaus is making the motion before trial. The issues raised by this purpose are quite easy to address. First, you would note that Klaus's conviction is admissible for this purpose only if he takes the stand. The prosecutor can't impeach Klaus's truthfulness as a witness if he doesn't appear as a witness. Second, you would note that even if Klaus takes the stand, the rule would not admit evidence of this conviction for impeachment. The conviction is one for a misdemeanor that did not involve a dishonest act or false statement. Parties cannot use that type of conviction to impeach under Rule 609. In addition, the conviction occurred 20 years ago. It almost certainly is time-barred under that rule. Now we need to consider the prosecutor's second possible purpose, to show Klaus's propensity for sexual misdeeds. Stop the video again and think about whether the prosecutor can offer the conviction or underlying acts for that purpose. What do we know about evidence offered to establish propensity? First, we know that the rules generally forbid that type of evidence, and a judge would acknowledge that in ruling on this motion. Congress, however, enacted a set of rules allowing propensity evidence in cases of sexual assault or child molestation. In this case, you would focus on the rule allowing propensity evidence in sexual assault prosecutions, which is Rule 413, because the current charge and prior conviction both fall in that category. You don't have to cite rule numbers on the final exam, but using them can make it easier for you to write your answer. Now you need to analyze application of this rule, just as a judge might in this case. The first thing a judge might note is that the rule admits any type of evidence that the defendant committed any other sexual assault. The rule is not limited to prior convictions, so both the conviction and the underlying acts are potentially admissible here. Second, there is no time limit on evidence admitted under Rule 413, nor is there any balancing test. Klaus's misdemeanor conviction and the allegations underlying that conviction both seem like fair game for admission. The only limits on admission of evidence under Rule 413 lie in the word may and in Rule 403. Rule 413 states that the judge may admit evidence. It doesn't say that the judge must admit that evidence. Rule 403, meanwhile, gives the judge discretion to exclude evidence when unfair prejudice substantially outweighs probative value. A judge, however, would acknowledge that it's difficult to apply those limits in a Rule 413 case. Evidence of prior convictions or other bad acts usually is unfairly prejudicial because the jury will engage in propensity reasoning. The jurors will assume that if the defendant did this bad thing before, he must have done it again. Congress, however, explicitly endorsed propensity reasoning when it adopted Rule 413. Under those circumstances, what type of facts will make evidence of a prior sexual assault unfairly prejudicial? Conversely, what facts will reduce probative value? Courts have split in their application of Rule 403 to evidence admissible under Rule 413, but most of them look to a similar set of factors, which are listed on page 403 in the textbook. In this case, several factors weigh against admission of Klaus's prior conviction or of the acts underlying that conviction. The action and convictions occurred 20 years ago. That's a long time. The prosecutor in the earlier case had doubts about the complainant's credibility. That's why he offered a very lenient plea. The actions are also relatively dissimilar. Even if a rape occurred, rape of a peer is different from molestation of a young child. Both are abhorrent, but are they similar enough to support propensity reasoning? Finally, Klaus's record is clean, apart from this 20-year-old plea bargain. By admitting evidence of one crime that occurred long ago, the court might give the jury a mistaken impression of Klaus's overall character. On the other hand, there is at least one factor weighing in favor of admission. That is the fact that Klaus pled guilty to the crime. The prosecutor is not simply resurrecting unsupported allegations. You might be able to think of other factors either supporting or refuting admission. Judges could reach different decisions on this issue, but when a question asks you whether or not you would admit evidence, you should come to some conclusion. When grading answers to this question, I awarded most points to the analysis we've discussed, but I saved 1 point for articulating a conclusion. Students received that point regardless of their outcome, but students who offered no conclusion lost that point. Note, by the way, that the judge in this case could decide to split the difference between the parties. The judge could allow the prosecutor to introduce evidence of the prior conviction, which was for sexual imposition, while eliminating any description of the underlying charges, which were for the more serious offense of rape. This would still be harmful to the defense, but not as harmful as admitting the full story. The defense could then decide whether to tell the whole story to the jury, making clear that the former prosecutor offered a very lenient deal because of doubts about the complainant's credibility, or the defense could focus simply on pointing out how long ago this conviction occurred. Before I end the video, here are a few notes about grading. Students didn't have to make all of the points I've discussed in this video in order to get full credit for this question. I'm realistic about the time constraints on an exam. No one nails every point while on their feet in the courtroom, and the same is true for an exam. I do, however, reward students who focus on the key issues in a problem and discuss contested matters fully. In this problem, the prior conviction clearly would not be admissible to impeach Klaus's character for truthfulness, even if he decided to take the stand. I assigned only a few points to that discussion, and students could receive full credit without discussing that issue at all, if they devoted all of their time to the second issue and fleshed out points more thoroughly. Here, the prosecutor's strongest argument for admission rested on that second ground, the special rule governing admission of propensity evidence in prosecutions for sexual assault. As explained here, that's a strong argument. The only contested part of this argument, furthermore, involved how the judge should exercise his or her discretion. I awarded points for discussing all aspects of the Rule 413 issue, but I reserved a significant number of those points for discussion of the factors affecting the judge's discretion. I hope this discussion of the sample problem was helpful, both in reviewing Rule 413 and in learning how to approach an exam question. I look forward to posting another discussion soon.